What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Sabine Kvenberg. Sabine was previously a stage and TV actor in Germany until she moved to the United States with her husband to open a performance studio to help others do the same. They owned that studio for 27 years, closed it down so that she could then become a coach to help the general public be able to improve their speaking and communication abilities as well. So this conversation is very in-depth about what it takes to be yourself, to communicate yourself to the world, and how you can show others that you have the courage to be yourself and you have the courage to communicate, something that a lot of us could use nowadays. Speaking is the number one thing that people are scared of, public speaking. It's something that can be so impactful as well and can not only impact your career, but can also impact your personal life. So be ready to take some notes. Enjoy this conversation with Sabine Kvenberg. Sabine, it is great to see you yet again. Conversation number 2. Like I was saying before we got started, time for me to hold your feet to the fire.
I can't wait. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to this conversation.
Yes, we have a bunch of big things to talk about today, one of them being your book that's going to be released here at the end of the month. Super excited about that for you. You got your proof in the mail, so that's got to be you got to be very antsy about the next 3 weeks, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
Well, it's one of those things that it's like you're so excited about it, but like you want to make sure that all the things are lined up to do what you can to make that day as good as you can. So you're
hmm
trying not to get nervous and you're like trying not to pull your brain in a bunch of different directions. I can only imagine that's how it feels. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you are actually pretty right on. A lot of things coming, and it's a mixed emotion, really. It's about, wow, when I opened up that envelope for my proofread, and that's how it looks like. It still says not for resale, so it's just a proof. But now I have it in my hand. I could feel it. I can see the pictures of the other authors, and it's very exciting. But then you go through and make sure everything is lined up, and as I shared with you earlier, yeah, I did find a couple, few little tiny mistakes, and yeah, it's a process. It
Hmm.
really is exciting, and then getting everybody on board and getting everything organized for the 24th, which is the launch date. So yeah.
Very nice. I imagine you got the chills when you open that envelope. I would assume because
Yes, yes,
that's
yes.
a lot of work.
Yes, you get that Amazon envelope, and then you feel said, "Oh my gosh, this is the book. This is the
That's
book." And
cool.
how does it look like? Because you just see it, the digital version, but now you hold it in your hand and you feel it and you see it, and it's beautiful. It's something you created, and now you see it come to
Mm.
realization, which I oftentimes do with my clients when we go through the process of how can I get where I want to go.
Mhm.
And me being, of course, coming from the entertainment industry and being an actress and director, we learned how to slip into a character and
Mhm.
then feel and act like that character.
Mm.
And when you apply that to your life, um, knowing you can slip not into a character, but into your future self. And when you see what that future self of you sees and feels, that's very important to bring that feeling to it. Things to come into the 3D world to you, it's so much easier. And I have the stuff to prove it on myself. It happened to me so many times. So it's exciting to become. It's that becoming process.
Well, and that's the name of your podcast, so that's perfect, right? For the name of your
Yes.
podcast. And um, like I said, we'll get to that in a second. That's going to be. I'm very excited for you, by the way, about the book. It's something that I've thought of myself. So I'm excited that you're able to go through that process. But let's go back to your journey, because you've done a lot. You've done a lot. Moved literally across countries, and
Mhm.
you've also, when we talked, you talked about owning an art studio. Was that right? For 25 years. Did I get that?
That's 27 years actually. Yep.
27 years.
Yes.
So that's still amazing to me. 27 years. Tell me about the process of starting that art studio. What was the studio exactly? I don't think we got that in depth about it, but I'm curious about what that looked like to you when you got that started, and kind of like the feelings. I know it's at this point 30 or 30 plus years ago, maybe at this point, but what what that look like in the beginning?
Yeah. It's again, it's the creation process, which is
Hmm.
very interesting. But where it really um, resonated from was the passion for using my talent. I was a stage and TV actress in Europe for 10 years. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Germany, and I had a great career. During that time, I met my now husband. We did the European tour of Fiddler on the Roof, and we met in Switzerland, neutral territory.
It's too
um,
funny.
and he lived in Germany with me for a couple of years, and we traveled the world. We put on shows on different vacation spots. That was exciting, but we wanted to settle down. And so we made the decision, what is the next step in our lives? And still doing what we love, what we are passionate about. So we wanted to pass on the love for the performing arts to a new generation and start our own business. And then we had to make a decision, where do we do this? Germany, United States, because my husband is from the United States. So we decided, let's do it in America. And that's when I bought my one-way ticket and moved to the States. And yeah, we started that without knowing too much about building a business, but with a lot of passion and excitement. And when you have that, the how will show up, right? And so it did for us. And we put all our energy in building something that we can stand behind. And of course, we do have the knowledge of the teaching. We were able to teach acting, dance, music, and learned along the way to teach other things as well, the life lessons. And that's how we got started. And it grew from there.
That's it's pretty amazing. Like you said, if you have the passion behind it and you have the will to do it, then you'll figure out the how along the way. It's definitely scary in the beginning whenever you start a business. We talked about the business I started. Mine was a measly 10 years long, not 27, but nonetheless, um, yeah, it's scary when you start because you just
And,
have.
and to tell you, I mean, 10 years, that is awesome. 5 years is wonderful because most businesses, 80%, about 80%, give or take, fail in the first year.
Mm.
And then another 80% fail the next 5 years. So making it to 10 years, that's a huge deal.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. I know I don't give myself enough credit for that, but I appreciate
Isn't
that.
that true? We don't, too often don't do this.
Yes, very true, very true. So thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's there's a lot to it. There's a lot to learn. But at the same time, if you think about all the things you need to learn along the way, that's gonna more likely stop you from actually doing it. Whereas if you know that you're passionate about the thing that you want to deliver to the world, then I believe you'll be more likely to believe in your capabilities to learn what's necessary to make the business work. So I'm
Yes,
curious,
absolutely.
what were some of the things that you guys learned? What were a couple of the biggest obstacles you overcame and the lessons you learned from them over the course of those 27 years? I know it's a lot to compact, 27
Yeah.
years, But what are some things that off the top of your head, you guys really took away from having that business?
Well, the first thing I would say is learn how to communicate, because you have to communicate with your students, but you also have to communicate with the parents, which are the customers who pay you. And you have to communicate with potential customers, future customers, right? You have to let them know who you are and what you do. And the more effective, in a more effective way you can do it, the more your business grows. And then there is another aspect to it. Once you have the customers, at the beginning, I was not shy, but when somebody said something, well, you should have done it this way or that way, or run the business this way or that way, I was like, huh. Or they were demanding, and then you are afraid that that customer perhaps would leave and you get not their revenue anymore. You do things that are not smart.
Not rational.
You compromise with things, and you don't think rational, as you said. So once I made the decision, you know what? That person, that's their problem, what they're dealing with. It's not me, it's not my business. With that said, yes, if somebody said something that we didn't do correctly and I see that, I did everything to make up for it. Said, I'm very sorry, I didn't see it this way. That happened, or so, but I want to make up for it. So here is 1 month free. I always did that. But if a person came to me and says, well, my daughter has to be in the front row, or, I pay all this money, so I expect ABC. And then I say, we are probably not the right business for you. Right down the road, there's actually another studio. Why don't you check them out? When you say that to people, they're like, oh, and with some we depart, but it was very, very few. And the one we did depart was a blessing, because we got rid of that negative energy that they brought into the studio. Because one of the things that I always have in the forefront, that I conduct business either back then as a studio or now with my clients in my coaching program, is you have to stand in the truth of who you are. You have to be respected, and you have to respect your customers. There have to be that mutual respect and trust. And you always work from your higher self or best self, the best way you can, obviously. But this has been these have been my guidelines, and it served me well.
Sabine, that is so good. And I love the way that you articulated as well. I it's firing clients, right? That's essentially what we're talking about, which needs to be done sometimes, because they can easily start to shift the culture of your business. When you start to, and I know this well also because I've done irrational things in the course of having that studio for 10 years as well. One example that I think of off the top of my head was, we were not a gym. Some gyms have childcare. We were not a gym. We definitely did not have childcare. And so, but a lot of our members had kids, and sometimes they would ask to bring their kids. And sometimes we would say, okay. But then one parent brought younger kids, and they start running around the gym. It's a training studio. This isn't, it's not a play place. So they start running around the gym. And the second that I saw that, that's when I decided, no more kids. That's it. No more kids. Can't have it, because once one parent sees that, then another parent's going to take over, and they're going to come do the same thing, and so on. And then it's just going to turn into, and it's going to run off all the good clients, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
So as a business owner, it's hard because, like you said, you're like, oh, I don't want the revenue. I want the revenue from this person. But the question is, how are you affecting the rest of the revenue? How are you affecting the rest of the business by potentially giving in to this person. And that's
Absolutely.
something that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And a lot of that is being comfortable in your own skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having the confidence to say, hey, this is the way things are. Like you said, there's another
And it's
place
all
down the
about
road.
education, actually. So when you just say something, you can, but how you say it, which is also so important with communication, how you say it. Said, hey, look, we have this incident and there's a liability with it. They can fall and they can break something. So we had to set the precedents and say, no more kids. And you know what? People will understand that once you explain why. So, oh, okay, and you can move on.
That's a valid point as well. And I think the other thing it does, because you mentioned that most people, when you told them the way that you thought, if they came to you, they'd stick around and everything was okay. But some people left.
Mm-hmm.
The people that you stood up to and stuck around probably respected you more because of that, I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yes, it's true.
Probably respected you more because of it. So there's, it's again, it's tough, but at the end of the day, if you don't stand in your own skin and you don't stand up for what you know to be right with the business, with your organization, it's the culture is going to go and everything's going to go. And I would say that the same can be said for the human being as well. But the human being, if you don't stand up for who you are as a human being and you don't have the confidence to be yourself when other people are trying to make you a different person, then your inner culture, if you will, your identity gets lost.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things when I work with my clients, we're talking about communication skills. And one thing I cannot stress enough is the communication you have with yourself and the self-talk that you have, and also what you instill within yourself, the way you think about yourself, right? Say, you know what? I'm standing up. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly who I am, and I know exactly what I expect from the other person. And once you are so clear with that, it is so much easier to communicate with another person and to get to your goals, either your personal or your business goals, much faster because you have that clarity of who you are.
How do you start to cultivate the courage to have those kinds of conversations with people? How do you start to cultivate? Because it takes courage to do that, to start to say, hey, your this is how we're going to communicate, this is how we're going to talk to each other, this is who I am. How do you start
Mm-hmm.
to build that in yourself?
First of all, it is different for each person. And in some instances, you might need to work with someone, a coach, a mentor, whatever, right? Another person, but it should be a person who can guide you and help you, not just your best friends who can say whatever. Um, but what I feel is the most important step you can take is to make a decision. The decision to be more courageous, despite the fact that it might hurt at sometimes. And then you have to figure out, narrow it down, what is it, or what situations, or in what instances are you afraid or don't have the courage to speak up? So that means self-awareness is the next step, that you are, that's when it happens. Again, if you have a coach that can help you along the way, it's much, much easier. But those are the things. The self-awareness, start with that, that you know this is where you are afraid, or this is where you want more courage. Second, making a decision to go and either talk to another person, or go and record that video, or go and give this presentation. It's interesting. I'm, as I mentioned, I'm German American, so I grew up in Germany. So I still have my whole family in Germany. Last year, I visited them, and we all went to this big carnival. And my niece said, "Sabine, let's go and take this roller coaster ride." I said, "Sure." I don't like roller coaster rides. But I wanted to look cool. I wanted to be the cool aunt, right, from America. And so I went. And as soon as those roll bars came over your shoulders, right, I felt this knot in my stomach as what did I get myself into? And then boom, we were off up that steep hill. So we finally reached the top. There was no turning back. And the only thing I could do is close my eyes and hope for the best. And down we went. And before you know it, we were back at the beginning. And I didn't even remember half of it. Isn't it so true for public speaking or speaking up for yourself? Did you know that public speaking is the number one fear, even before roller coaster rides? And but if you take that parallel, we know we have to speak up, either in your business. You have to get in front of people so they know what you do, or you have to speak in front of your team or your family at one point or another, and you want to look cool, yeah, so you do it. But then the entire time before you even go in front of the people or go up on stage, in some instances, things go through your head, right? Oh, what if I forget my lines? What if I choke? What if my hands get sweaty? What if I have to pee? And you are not focused on what's ahead. You're stuck in your mind, in your head. So now finally you made it up on stage and you start your presentation. Before you know it, it's done. But you don't even remember half of it. And then you question yourself, did I say all the things I wanted to say? Did I have the right call to action? Right? And so when we know how we can overcome it, right? And that is knowing the techniques, knowing how to prime yourself, prepare yourself, and know that you have practiced, you did the presentation, it will be okay, right? And so then it is much, much easier to do what you got to do. And maybe you start enjoying it. So I have to do more roller coaster rides so that eventually I will enjoy it.
Yeah. You'll jump on and go, yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
That's too funny. No, but that's a great analogy. And I can tell you, excuse me, my own journey is exactly the same. Uh, I'm a natural introvert, so I don't like talking to people. I mean, I'm somewhat kidding, but I naturally do well. I'll gladly be by myself. I'll gladly, that's how I recharge as I go in and I be by myself. And then I can go out and I can talk for a little bit, but then eventually I got to go in and recharge. So people are surprised when I say that because I've trained myself to be able to talk to a camera and to be able to talk in front of an audience. And in the beginning, it wasn't pretty. It was not it was not good. It was not None of it was good looking. So you definitely have to it's just a matter of starting to do it. But I like what you said about priming yourself for the
Mhm.
presentation or priming yourself for the conversation. Tell me more about that. That's
So
intriguing.
yeah, so I have my framework and my master class that I teach is called the 3 Ps, and that's prime, prepare, present. And what I mean with priming is you have to put in the work first to get to the next step. And one of the things is priming your mind. It's all about the mindset, what you tell yourself, right? Again, self-awareness. If you catch yourself by, what if I mess up? Then you say, oh, what if it's going great, right?
Mm.
So priming yourself with your mindset, priming the mind by reading positive materials, by having that positive self-talk. And there are a couple other things that you can do. But the other prime is making sure that you have the right speech. You are not mumbling. So that's the physical priming. And by that, well, when I started my acting career, I had an accent. I still have an accent now. If people say, yeah, you still have an accent. No, I'm talking about my German accent that I
Hmm.
had. And as an actor, you had to have this clear high German. And what did we have to do? Yeah, you have to prime yourself and you have to do the exercises. Ma, me, mi, mo, mu. And you have to prime yourself by speaking very clearly. And that is one of the things. If you, for example, are afraid, oftentimes you start speaking very, very fast and you start and you start mumbling and people don't understand you. And when you do that, that also takes away from your confidence. And, oh, I didn't do a good job. Nobody could understand me. So that is the priming, the mental and the physical. And there are a couple other things you can prime, just to have a better stance and whatnot. So that's what I meant by priming.
Very good. So, excuse me. The accent thing is very interesting to think about, by the way. German accents. I assume it's like a Southern accent versus Northern accent, like someone from Louisiana versus someone from California versus someone from New York. It's the same in Germany, which I imagine it's the same in France and same in Italy and so on and so forth. So
Yes.
I don't know. I guess I've never thought about it, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
interesting.
it's very, very true. And same here. Like the Southern is almost like a different language. Sometimes you
It
cannot
is.
understand them.
It is.
Bavaria is so different than Hamburg. And so like Boston, for example, they have the very open, and that's kind of the northern accent in
Mm.
Germany. And because there are a lot of people that live there came from the northern part, and a lot of people from the south said it in the south. There
Hmm.
you got it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. But one thing that I said, and I'm curious your thoughts on this way to think about it. One of my She was a client at the time. She's actually a good friend now. She was in high school at the time, and she was talking about giving a being in speaking class and having to give a presentation and just how she was nervous. And I was like, well, what are you thinking about when you're getting nervous? She's like, well, I'm thinking about if I'm going to mess up, and I'm thinking about if I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I was like, that's kind of selfish of you. And she goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, you're just sitting there thinking about yourself the whole time while you're giving the presentation. If you're giving a presentation, you're trying to speak to them. You're not trying to speak to you. So focus on them. Don't focus on you. Is there any art in focusing on the crowd or focusing on the people and the message instead of and letting that be your deflection of the focus on you?
Yeah, absolutely. And to tell you the truth, everybody has fears and is nervous, even myself. And every actor who starts for the first time with a new play, so opening night, you have that, what we call stage fright, right? You are getting nervous. And what you want to do is don't focus on that. Don't focus on like, oh, what if I forget my lines? No, what you want to do is you go inwards and you go over your lines, right? Instead of saying, what if I mess up? No, you go inwards and you say, oh, you become that character. Or if you talk on a stage as a speaker. You don't have to become somebody else, but go inwards and just kind of reflect, what do I want to say? What are my opening lines? Because quite frankly, people, what they remember most is the beginning and the end. That's where you can do the most impact. So I always say, and if this is one big takeaway, make sure you have a solid beginning and a solid end. Know exactly your call to action, know exactly how you want to finish. And when you focus on that before you go on, you don't focus on the audience. You don't focus on anything else but that. And that will get you far, far than anything else. To give you an example, I had a colleague, he was also speaking, and he started his speaking career. So I gave him a couple of tips, and I told him, I didn't know that you were finished. And actually, your end was already there because everybody stood out and applauded. But then you added something on, and then you finished, and everybody was, okay, right? You have to know that. So the next time we met again, and he did it again. But guess what he did? He came right after he got down from stage, came to me and said, Sabine, I'm so sorry. I did it again. I said, that's okay. Don't do it again now for the third time. And
That's too
so
funny.
you have to do the mistakes. But the second time he was aware of it. I bet you the next time he won't do it again.
Yeah, something as an example, something that I am aware of in my own presentations or my own speaking in general are my filler words. My filler word is like. I like to use the word like.
Yep.
I'll do something like I didn't
Like,
do that on purpose. I'm not doing that on purpose. That's the fill that I'm throwing in there. Before we get to the book, since I went down this rabbit hole, how do you start to recognize fillers? Because fillers are something that kill a lot of impact, if you will, because you feel like you have to fill the gap. That's what a filler word. You feel like you have to fill the space between thoughts or between transitions. How do you start to recognize fillers so that you can have a better impact? Because if you can just let the space be and keep yourself open, there's actually a better chance that your words may hit better.
so about fillers, you put in filler words because you don't know what to say next, you are insecure, and a habit. It's a habit. So those are the three things really. Sometimes it can just be a habit, especially some of the youngsters, right? The kids, oh, like, it's just how they talk. So what you have to do, because it's a habit, you have to train it out of their conversation. So there are certain steps you can do it. Next thing is very common, and I do sometimes too. I'm not perfect, especially when you speak off the cuff. You put a lot of knows in there, And the other day I was editing a podcast, and I realized how many knows one of my guests put in there. I said, holy cow. But I wasn't able to, or I don't have the time to cut it out. So it's just part of it. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. But what you want, if you are looking for words, you're not 100% sure, slow down your speed, be very conscious, and have a pause. That will help you think of your next sentence. So here you have it.
That's good. Yeah, just be comfortable with that space.
Mm-hmm.
Be comfortable with the silence, which is actually harder now today for most people than it's ever been because
And that's why you have to have a coach, because oftentimes you don't even realize it. And when you have somebody who knows what they're doing, They can help you. Watch out here, watch out there. And what I do often with my clients, we work on their talk, what I call the celebrity signature talk. You don't have to be a movie star to be a celebrity, because you are your unique you. And then with that uniqueness that you have, the message that you have, and the results you want to achieve, then we put together your message, your signature talk, incorporating stories, because guess what people remember? Stories, right? And then you practice it. Now you can write it down, and oftentimes when you write your story, you write it out. It's you memorize it. I mean, as actors, we have to memorize it all the time. Now, do we speak it like I just memorized this line and this is what it is? No, we have it in our head. Now we are slipping into the character or your future self, meaning when you are on stage, you stand there and you know what you want to say because it's already here in the back of your mind. But now you say it with vocal variety, and that's where the presentation skills come in. That's the third part, the presentation, where I coach them how to present, how to use your vocal variety, your gestures, how to use the stage, because that's another thing, that's a pet peeve of mine. They rock, right? They're so nervous, they're rocking, or even side to side, and look,
Swaying, yeah.
especially when you have this small frame. So those are the things. And when you can nail those three things, oh my gosh, you nail your presentations. And picture a day that you do it and people come up to you saying, "Ah, it was like you were talking to me. I want to work with you. How can I sign up?"
Mm, that's so powerful. That's so good. All right, let's jump into the book.
Yes, let's do
Let's jump
that.
into the book. Super excited about this. April 24th is the launch, so you still got a couple weeks to be nervous. But tell me about the book. What inspired you to put this together?
It really inspired me to start this. It was born from my podcast. The podcast called Become. And my tagline is, we have to become the person we are meant to be, to live the life we are destined to live. And I had wonderful guests like you, and that share their story of overcoming adversities. And I had so many requests that I thought I need to find another outlet. And that was the book. And then I contacted a couple people that I know their story was very powerful. But then the word got out and people called me and wanted to be in the book. And that's when I said, wow, I wanted to have stories of empowerment. And guess what? It turned out to be, it's all women. However, the stories are so powerful. It's important for a man to read it too. And I actually have three gentlemen writing. One wrote the foreword, Chris Kremitzos, who is the CEO and creative officer of the Podfest Expo. And then two other friends who gave a powerful testimony and said, well, I learned so much from it. So the stories of women sharing how to overcome those situations. And it really echoes grace and strength and gives us hope. It's really for us to learn how we can transform our lives and come out as our next greater self.
I'm not surprised that most of those stories of strength, or all of your stories of strength, come from women, to be totally honest with you. Again, in the fitness studio, women were the ones that were willing to push themselves harder. They were the ones that were willing to work harder. They were the ones that were willing to put in more effort. They were the ones that were willing to overcome more struggle. They were just the ones that were willing to do it. So I can't say that surprises me too much.
Yeah, so that's how it came about. Yeah, and I already know When I first started out, I didn't know how impactful it was also for me, those reading those stories. And now I want to get it out into the world. So I ask everybody who's listening and want to support this, I would appreciate it. I'm sure you can put a link in the show notes. We have a virtual launch party where you can be a guest, and we have giveaways, we have drawings. You can get anything from microphones to a gift card to a signed, autographed version. If you are there on the 24th, and if you support the book by getting it, buying it on Amazon on the 24th.
Very good, very good. So that I will definitely put that link in the show notes. I'll make sure to do that. That is on the 24th. What
Of
time is
April.
the April 24th? What time
Mhm.
is the virtual gathering
It's
party?
it's going actually, we're going to have a kickoff early in the day because
Mm,
this book is international. We have authors from Europe, Spain,
wow.
Sweden. Yes, so their followers will be there during the day. But here for the US, it's in the evening. So it's at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, April 24th. And so it's under an hour, so it's not long, but I have the other co-authors, and some of them will read like some part of the stories. And again, it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, you have the opportunity to win some great prizes.
Very good. Like I said, I'll make sure to put that link in the show notes. Anywhere else where you want people to find you, Sabine?
It's so easy. Just go to sabinekvenberg.com, SabineKvenberg.com /resources. And there you find also the link to sign up actually for the VIP party. And I also have free stuff there, and so much more resources will be there. And you can stay in touch with me that way. And if you're listening and really want to talk with me, you can always schedule a time on my calendar. Just go to talktosabine.com.
Wonderful. Sabine, I appreciate your wisdom in all of this, and I look forward to hearing the outcome of the book.
Thank you, Jerry. It was a pleasure.